First up, the US dollar. We saw the benchmark S&P 500 post record highs yesterday. US stocks reaching record highs. The big story in the news yesterday was the FOMC meeting minutes. The takeaway from that is that the governors were signaling a rate hike soon. So we're expecting a June rate hike. The FedWatch tool from CME is forecasting an 83% probability of a rate hike. So that's consistent with what we're seeing in the FOMC minutes. We had not much on the economic calendar yesterday, but we did see existing home sales miss expectations, putting a little pressure on the US dollar. And finally, we saw the dollar index move lower on Wednesday, which is a little bit surprising as the Fed was signaling this rate hike and clarifying their intent to possibly hike rates, which is something that's typically bullish for the dollar. Moving on, let's take a look at the chart. We can see that price retreated here yesterday on the dollar index. Next up, let's take a look at the euro. Draghi was speaking yesterday in Madrid, and he basically, in his speech, said that he's comfortable with the current policy path. He sees no reason to deviate from the currency policy path, which is a very accommodative path with low interest rates and quantitative easing, which is in contrast with the more hawkish policy in the US, where they're signaling possible rate hikes in the June meeting. We saw some data come out of Europe yesterday. The GfK, German Consumer Climate, beat expectations, giving the euro a little lift. And we saw the euro move back towards its highs on Wednesday, flirting with the new fresh highs and coming closer to the next levels of resistance. So we're getting close to resistance up around 113.05. Let's jump in and look at the chart here so we can see the euro up here right around the highs. These are roughly 6-month highs, guys. Next up, the British pound. British pound hovering around the key 130 level, which it's been doing for the last few days. We didn't see a huge reaction after the terrorist attack in Manchester. We didn't see a big sell-off in the British pound. There was an initial reaction in dollar yen, but we did see some pressure on the pound after the UK raised its terror threat to critical. Big release for the pound today, second estimate GDP, due for release later today. So you traders in the pound, look out for volatility around that release. Jump in and look at the pound chart, and you can see that we're hovering below 130 here, as I said. Finally, let's look at the chart of the day. We're looking at across the euro against the New Zealand dollar. And we can see up here that it's tested this nice upward trend line here several times, forming resistance to the upside. And then, interesting level of support down here, we have the 200 period simple moving average. And we can see a cluster of price around there where it's been tested multiple times. So that concludes it today for the market in a minute. Do join us later in the day for the more in-depth daily market forecast. Thank you all very much for joining us.